Okay, so I wanted to show like team positioning and whatnot. So I my background, I was Army infantry, U.S. Army infantry for a long time. I was a heavy infantryman, rolled around in these Bradleys. Not quite this variant, but rolled around in these Bradleys. So with a squad with a wedge or a team with a wedge, if it's a squad with a wedge, it's usually a double wedge behind it as well. But what it would be is you would have a regular rifleman as your point man, because if you were to get into contact, generally your initial rifleman, your point man, is going to be that one that gets shot at first. So you wouldn't want your team leader or your squad leader to be in that position, because if they were to go down, you have a bunch of guys that are leaderless for a while. Now, depending on what the team lead or squad lead wants, you can have a wedge heavy left or wedge heavy right. So if you do, like for an example, this one is wedge heavy left, you have your LMG or your saw on the left side of the wedge, and then to counteract that, you have a grenadier on the right side. So you don't have all of your casualty producing weapons on one side. But if you had like two machine gunners, you'd put both machine gunners on the left and a grenadier on the right and your regular rifleman on the right. So it would more than likely be two machine gunners instead over here, and then everybody else over here. Or if you were to do heavy right, it's the same thing but the opposite side. Um, Another thing is generally your team leads or your squad leads wouldn't have a long range radio. The reason being is an antenna is a hell of a beacon. So you wouldn't want your team lead to have that beacon on its back. Because if your team lead or your squad lead goes down, once again, leaderless guys. So generally it would be a regular rifleman would have the radio, and they'd either be trained to use it and relay information from squad lead or team lead. Um, like for an example, in my Army career, I was the RTO Grenadier for my squad. My sergeant fucking hated me. But I had to carry the radio and I had to carry the grenade launcher. And I was kind of happy to carry the grenade launcher because I kind of liked it. But, um, so yeah, it would be a regular rifleman. Now, there's other formations as well. Like there's a V that it's basically like a reverse wedge. I've never really used it to be honest with you. But I'm going to simulate a patrol down a road. So you'd have your point man on one side. Generally, if you're doing a patrol like this, you do it staggered. So then you would move your AT-man up at a staggered position, your saw gunner at a staggered position, your grenadier at a staggered position, your radioman at a staggered position, and your squad lead or your team lead would be somewhere where he can control the unit or control the team easily. Now, what this means is, if you put him up at the front, he's going to be pretty easily able to control the team. But if he goes down, he can't control the team anymore. So, if for team lead, it's completely up to them. They could be midway and be in the middle. The middle is generally a better way of controlling a team. It's the same way with files. If you were to file, if you ever file, I would definitely suggest kind of being like a slight staggered file. So you just kind of stagger it out a little bit. And there's your file. The reason for the staggered is if you take contact, you can either move to the left or right and be outside of someone's muzzle. Now, if we were to say we'll spawn in a bunch of fire team of enemies, right? And they'll be looking this way. And you have two teams of guys. Oh, I need groups. woodland infantry, 2 teams. That would be, in Arma they do it weird. They make your team leader the point man. You don't want to be the point man. But if you have 2 teams of guys, which honestly I'll probably just delete them, and yeah, I'll I'll do it with 3 and 3. So you have contacts. Your point man says we have contacts. Get on, or your team lead will say like get online or something. Everybody gets online. So everyone will move in, get online. Like if there's like you're already shooting, you move up to the initial guy, get online with them to where you're all shooting at the same people. And then this is Battle Drill 1 Alpha. What would happen is generally it'd be 2 different teams. So one team leader would be like, look, we're going to flank them. And then their team would break contact, move back, and move around to the side, flank them. And then at that point, they would relay to this team, we're in position, shift fire. And basically what the first team will do is they'll either lift fire or they'll shoot at an angle. So generally they'll shoot up and away or to the left and away. And it'll be like your saw gunner will definitely be really good at doing this. And this is if your targets are down or they're not shooting back, you lift fire up or to the left. And then this team says, alright, we're going to push in. These 3 will slowly walk across the positioning until they come to the bodies, and then they'll go through and they'll check each body. And then when they're done, they'll move through. They'll either look for intel or see if anyone's alive. If they're alive, they'll start providing medical care. But then the rest will move through. And then they'll get to a point to where they get to their LOA, their limit of advance. And it's either a wall or it's a distance away from the enemies, like 25, 30 meters. And then when they hit their LOA, they'll relay to the initial team, we've hit our LOA, and then this team will stop firing, and they'll move up. And they'll be moving, and then they'll come to these enemies, and they'll check them. And they're checking for guys that are alive, guys that may be booby-trapped with hand grenades, like they'll hold a hand grenade underneath of them with it pulled. And there's a specific way of checking that, but it's not needed in the Arma world. But they'll be checking that. They'll be looking for intel, and once they're done, they'll move up past the enemies until they hit their LOA, and they'll say, alright, we've hit our LOA, go ahead and form back up. And then these guys will come back, and they'll form up into whatever position. Like if they want to do, like your wedges or your staggered position, and then they'll carry on. And that is Battle Drill 1 Alpha. Okay, so now we get into, you know, my bread and butter from when I was in the Army. I was a Bradley dismount, so I would dismount out the back of this, out of these Bradleys. So the commander would say, alright, if we're in contact, dismount left or dismount right. And basically he's talking his left or his right. So if he were to say dismount left, you would dismount but go to the right. And when you dismount obviously one at a time, and you dismount and you get online with the Bradley. And you would not want to go in front of this third wheel. If you go in front of this third wheel, if this gun is going, you are going to feel it. But you're still going to feel it in your chest back here, but you'd get out and you'd be online, and you would sort of do like an arc kind of deal. And you would dismount online, clearly, and I'm saying that repeatedly, but that's what you would do. And then once everyone's dismounted, then you'd break away and move away from the Bradley. Or if the Bradley starts taking heavy fire, you're going to want to get the fuck away from the Bradley. But this is how you would dismount with a dismount left or dismount right. It's just the same thing. Generally, you'd want your machine gunner out first to help provide cover. So this guy would technically be where this guy is. And you would not want to go in front of that third wheel. Now, there's such things as bounding with vehicles. And honestly, infantry bounding with vehicles is kind of pointless. I wouldn't suggest doing it. But vehicles bounding with vehicles, I've seen vehicles do to where they are, hold on, I've seen vehicles do it to where it's like regular bounding, where one moves up and stops, and then the other moves up and stops, and then one moves up and stops, and the other moves up and stops. Or they'll move up and then move up past, or move up past and keep doing that. Most the vehicle commanders I've ever talked to have said that's dumb, don't do that. Instead, what you do as vehicles is you move up together. Generally, if there's like hills and stuff, diving into the hills one at a time. So like, if there was a ditch, this vehicle would go in the ditch as this vehicle's still up out of the ditch. And then when that goes down in the ditch, it's no longer a target. So everyone shifts fire to this one. And then this one's coming up out of the ditch as this is going back into the ditch. And then this one is shooting at the ones that are trying to target this one, but this one's not noticeable anymore. So then they have to shift fire to this one. That is vehicle bounding. Here's a thing that most people don't realize as well, and generally, by the way, the Bradleys and the tanks are generally really tight knit. So, at least in America's Army, the tankers and the Bradleys generally always go together because the infantry support the tanks and the tanks support the infantry, right? It's a mutual relationship between the two. And with that being said, a tank shouldn't be in combat alone, the same as infantry can be in combat alone, but they should have some sort of supporting element, like a Bradley or a tank. Um, and the big thing with that is if the infantry come across a target that they can't quite kill, the tank is there to kill that target. But at the same time, the tank is also protected by the infantry from anti-tankmen on the enemy side. So it's a relationship kind of deal. Um, these vehicles work in tandem with the infantry. Okay, so here comes helicopter dismounts. So when you're traveling in a helicopter, as infantry, you know, you're at the mercy of being in the air and whatever shoots at you in the air. These gunners are generally really capable, and the pilots are really fucking capable of their birds. Now, when you land, there is a procedure to landing. So when you dismount, the infantry, the infantry will dismount in an arch, generally proned out, around each side that they get out of the helicopter. Whatever side you get out of the helicopter, you do like a half circle on that side, and you help provide security for the side gunners of like a Black Hawk. So and you would prone out, clearly. You'd either prone out or crouch, so that way if this fucker starts shooting, chances are he won't shoot you. But that is how you would get out of, side opened helicopters. Now, a Chinook, or a vehicle that you dismount out the back of it, is very different from a Black Hawk. So basically, a Chinook, if you were to dismount out of that, you would do like a crescent moon around the exterior of the helicopter. It's just a much larger half circle just around the back of the bird. In this one, you would either take a knee or you'd go prone. You know, make yourself the hardest target to hit, but you would dismount in a half circle around the rear of the bird. Um, it's pretty similar to remounting a vehicle, a helicopter. Generally, you would approach it crouched because of the blades. The blades in real life do dip down pretty low. As you can see, this one is pretty low to the ground. So when it's spinning, it's chopping pretty low to the ground. You don't want to be tall. So you would approach crouch to the position and then mount the helicopter. And then once in, all in, helicopter takes off, fucks off. Um, okay, so now I actually want to address what is the most casualty producing piece of equipment in the U.S. Army's arsenal. Is it, the A-10 Warthog, the M1A1 Abrams, the Bradley? Is it the machine guns? It's not. It's not a machine gun. It's not a grenade launcher. It's not the A-10. It's none of that. It's not even anything that the Air Force can throw at us or throw for us. Um, the most casualty producing piece of equipment amongst a squad is the long range radio. The long range radio can call for that fire support, can call for that helicopter, can call for that A-10 Warthog. The long range radio is the most important piece of equipment within a squad. Um, with that, the long range radio is definitely one of the most essential. So therefore, anybody speaking on that long range radio should be quick, concise. Um, if it's long-winded, people are going to die. Your team's going to die. You are going to lose people. You have to be quick. You have to be concise, and you have to make sure to get your message clear. And a big thing about the long-range radio, never, and I mean never, unless you're calling for an artillery barrage to happen again, say repeat on the radio. If you say repeat on the radio, a mortarman will hear that as repeat last fire mission, and they will repeat their last fire mission. And if it kills people, because it probably will, if they do an effective fire mission, a squad's going to go through and do that battle drill 1 alpha and check those fucking bodies. And if they're in that fucking position that they just did that fire mission on, and they hear repeat, and they send more mortars or more artillery, infantrymen are gonna die, or vehicles will die. People will die. So if you use a long range radio, unless you're calling to do another fire mission, do not say repeat on the radio. Good things to use is say again or say again on your last. That's all you really need to use. That's all I got to say about that. Okay, so that's really all I need to say about that. If I do come up with other bits of training information, I will be sure to pass that on or create more videos on it as I remember or as they come up. Um, but that is really all I wanted to touch on. Um, so yeah, uh, let me know what you think.